Pika, you want to do this one? Okay, we're going to do it. Hey there, Reverend Sully. Eric O'Sullivan, ordained on the internet. The caveat, as always, please do not burn your hands holding on to my hot takes. If you do, that's on you, pal. I love the X-Men. I grew up reading comic books, was an only child with a single working mother, living in the South Boston projects, and I had a very vivid imagination that kept me company, because when you have siblings, well, you are forced to have company and forced to share your space and your time and everything. When you're an only child, you don't have those struggles. And so I read a lot of comic books, and I was a very big X-Men reader. Let's see. I remember I'm 49 years old. I was born in 1972. That's just to give some perspective to timeline. So by the time 1991's X-Men #1 with Chris Claremont and Jim Lee came out, I was 19. I was 19 years old, 18 going on 19, graduating from high school, and I only bought one of the 5 issues of the 1 million plus sold for that. But I was an X-Men fan long before this. And the first back issues I ever bought were issues 154 and 155. Those were Days of Future Past. And I forget how much they cost. It wasn't that much. They were affordable for me being a kid. I remember getting them from New England Comics in Quincy Center, where in the old store by the Rotary, before it moved down the street. It was behind the counter on the wall. I always wanted those, and I got them. I worshiped those comics. Those were just great. And I probably got those probably about freshman year in high school or so, or maybe even 7th or 8th grade. So that's got to be the mid-'80s to late 80s, about, say, 86 and 87. And I was a monthly reader then. I loved those Chris Claremont years, especially with John Romita Jr. Didn't even know who he was at the time. The Tom Orachowski lettering. I love those. Just there's something about the sublime art of lettering. And Tom Orachowski just defined, the onomatopoeia and just the style of his words, the literal words that we read. And I loved that era before issue 200. I think I got off of being a monthly buyer about Fall of the Mutants around the time it all moved to Australia. Before that, I was a huge Vested fan. I loved everything culminating the trial of Magneto in issue 200 and everything. I loved Rachel Summers. I had the biggest crush on her. Maybe it was an Annie Lennox thing. It was the 80s, I loved the New Mutants. I was a kid. My imagination space. I mean, seriously, didn't you pretend you were one of the X-Men or training to be one of the X-Men as a very young person, hoping to make the squad someday? Training in the danger room with your unique power set, palling around with Wolverine, maybe even crushing on Kitty Pryde, like that Weezer song. I've got Nightcrawler, I got Kitty Pryde, and Nightcrawler too. Yes, I do. Yeah, In the Garage by Weezer. This came out. Let's look real quick. This is a decent copy of X-Men Teen Titans. This crossover happened. This is a real Big Two crossover. It was art by Walter Simonson. It was written by Chris Claremont. Just great Tom Orchowski. Oh my goodness. Here comes my Star Trek 2 moment again. Damn. Okay. 1982. I had this in 1982. 1983. There were comic book shops around in Boston. Mine was called Superhero Universe 3. It was on the corner of Washington and Winter Street. It was on the second floor. It had a Superman neon, and it had this entrance that was that was on Winter Street that you had to find, and then you had to get up to the second floor, usually by the stairs that were all the way in the back because the lift, the elevator, never was working. When you got to the second floor, you had to make your way down the hall, and then you'd start seeing the long boxes and full of comics. And then when you entered this place, it was just filled with role-playing games and T-shirts and back issues and the wall of new releases. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time to be a comics fan and a kid. And yeah, I got this. And this is pretty much my third copy I've had all my life. And it's non-canonical. It doesn't fit in either universe. It just assumes a new universe where the X-Men and the Teen Titans are on the same Earth. Yeah, there's no multiverse. Going on. So I was cognizant and aware during the Dark Phoenix era. This was amazing, especially because it was so risque at the time. Just seeing Jean Grey in black lingerie, to see Emma Frost in the bustier, there was just something very erotic about that, something very risque, especially with Jean losing herself and giving, having the illusion of Mastermind giving her permission to get into it, like darker places, because she was such a good girl, for one of the good guys, but she did have this like all-American girl quality before this. And but the Dark Phoenix saga, just even before that, with Wolverine being alone in the sewers of the Hellfire Club and taking out the masked, Hellfire minions, that was just awesome. That was just so incredible. And I was a kid for that. Yeah, the Dark Phoenix saga was amazing to be part of. Also was X Factor. X Factor was great when that came out. I loved how they brought Jean back. I mean, I thought that was great. I was a big fan of New Mutants. I was a big fan of the New Mutants OGN, the original graphic novel. Marvel had these oversized graphic novels that were of a higher price, but they had a better cover, like a cardboard stock. They had better pages, more vibrant coloring, and no ads. And I would read these on the shelves because I couldn't afford them, and they didn't fit in my long boxes. But I always wanted them. I mean, I can go back and get them now. I would get a reader quality one. I'm not into slabbing. I'm not into the speculator market value of these things. I love the stories. And the original graphic novel OGN of the New Mutants, it led us into the New Mutants title. And it was great to see young people, a little older than me, in these classic, but a little updated looking Xavier uniforms. I love the X-Men uniform, especially that time that they all started wearing it, when Jim Lee had it with the that when the yellow went down to the shoulders, and Forge, and he had those, and then all the bandolier packs on his thighs and the utility belts, and a big red X on the belt buckle. I had an X-Men belt buckle for a while too, just a simple movie style silver X. It was really nice because I felt always like an outsider, and I felt unique, and that I was gifted too, and I always felt a big affinity towards the X-Men. Now, I always hear this thing about, you either like one more than the other. You're either a bigger DC fan than a Marvel fan. That wasn't my case. I loved them equally. And, but going back to the OGNs, the original graphic novels, the one that I would read the most was God Loves, Man Kills. And it was provocative. It was this also came out in 1982 as well. Remember, I'm a young person. I'm a very young, I'm 9-10 years old at this time, going about 11, 12, seeing these things. And I mean, they didn't usually show this kind of violence in a random issue of X-Men. And just, but what it did, though, this is where Magneto started getting to be a bit more relatable, where he wasn't just some bad guy doing bad things for bad reasons. This is where we start seeing Xavier's dream versus Magneto's motivation. And it's a great power play that it's been lost. But God Loves, Man Kills is just, it was so good for its time. And Claremont used provocative language. He used his characters, what we would consider in an activist style. I mean, but then it had nuance. Then it had class. It was not preachy. And it was, and it's kind of lost now. So yeah, I was pretty much an X-Men reader up until Fall of the Mutants and the Mutant Massacre, where I kind of fell off the ship a bit, but I totally got off of buying comics about 94 or 96 or so with Onslaught. Now, Onslaught was cute, it looked great, but I mean, I can smell a stinker coming a mile away. Maybe it's my grandfather's fault. He liked to fart a lot. And, one of the best ones came out of this was Fatal Attractions, where Magneto leached the adamantium off of Wolverine's bones. It was this amazing, the Fatal Attraction, the covers, they had the holographic sticker, label on them. Those just were great. It was a great time to be a comics fan. But when Magneto did that to Logan, and then it was the big reveal, he had claws all that time. They were bone claws. They weren't just like a part of his adamantium, lacing of his skeleton. He always had them. And this is when we started fleshing out who Wolverine was and what his story is and his history and his origin. Around that time came this fabulous one, Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X, and showing the story of, if you might remember this image of a cybernetic helmet and a almost naked Wolverine with his claws, and how he escapes the Project X facility. And this is when he got the adamantium grafted onto his bones. And it was like the art. It was that Winsor Smith wrote that, and just the incredible art in that. And you know who wrote really good X-Men stories? Warren Ellis. Warren Ellis wrote some amazing X-Men stories. I got this for free, and look at this, the foil cover here. This is how comics used to be. I mean, this was $1.75 cover price. What was this, about 92 or so? 93. Yeah, X-Men 2099. The 2099 line, yeah, it didn't really succeed. But, oh, 1 second. Thanks. Sorry about that. Pika, did you entertain everyone while I was gone? Good. Okay, so I got off the comics about 94, 96 or so with Onslaught. I just didn't have it anymore. I was also a young man. I had girlfriends. I was working. I just, I kept in touch with it. There was comic shop news. There was Wizard. I had friends who I worked with who were active buyers. Hal Jordan became Parallax at this time. Kyle Rayner became the last Green Lantern. Superman got killed. Batman got his back broken. And that was the age of the 90s comic implosion. I came back in 2001, early 2001 to comics with Judd Winnick's Green Lantern, which was amazing. Judd Winnick, I still love you. He unfollowed me on Twitter after we were following each other for years. Must have been something I said. And Grant Morrison's New XMen, which came out around a little after the first Bryan Singer movie, and it adopted the leather outfits of the movie in a way. Wolverine had a very funny line, like, yeah, now I can go out in public. that was nice. But this is before I knew who Grant Morrison was. This is an amazing run. And unfortunately, this is the digest copy. And the pages fall out. Oh, but look at this beautiful Ethan Van Sciver art. Ethan Van Sciver is he's a maestro. He really is. And we got Frank Quitely art in here too. And look at this Jean Grey by EVS. Yeah, and see, the pages fall out because the gumming on the spine is just really shitty. But yeah, this is, Jean Grey, like a la even Ethan Van Sciver in the Famke Janssen kind of mold, I guess. But yeah, so New X-Men from issues 114 to 154, I was back in the fold. I was back being a monthly buyer. And they did this reboot thing with Chuck Austin. They brought back the uniforms. It was horrible. It just was a really, really bad time to be an X-Men fan after this pinnacle of storytelling. After Morrison left. But Morrison had a 4-year run with a very stable selection of artists. Frank Quitely, Ethan Van Sciver, Igor Kordev, who I think, in my own humble opinion, did a good job because it's not for everyone's taste. But Cordy is European, Morrison is European. It had this Euro flair to it. It was roughly hewn. It was a bit, I don't want to say clumsy, but it wasn't as well defined. It wasn't very fine lines as Quitely or EVS. And Mark Silvestri did a great. He finished this out with Here Comes Tomorrow. There's just some really, really good comic books here, and you'd probably want to go back and check out the entire Grant Morrison's New X-Men. I was blessed to have E is for Extinction as the first trade paperback, and I started buying, which picked up after that at Ride Xavier's. And my copy of that trade paperback, and then I started buying the floppies after that, my copy had the Morrison Manifesto, where back then it was okay to say, screw the fanboy. We're going to go in this direction that's going to blow everyone's mind. Now, that's such a tired trope that the whole subverting expectation thing is now a curse word to us. Because this isn't... what we ordered. This isn't what happened. And let's get to, and here's a good one too. Oh, it wasn't that good because it's Bendis. But Bendis did a run on Uncanny XMen. What was this, about 2014 or so? I was still buying comic books then. 2013, yeah. But what got me on this was the amazing art by Fraser Irving. Fraser Irving was this great artist. Does wonderful work. And it was Irving that got me to buy this. The story is just usual Bendis, very, very talky. Goes nowhere. It really went nowhere. But coming up to about 2019, and the amazing failure. I mean, I stopped buying Marvel Comics. I stopped buying comic books in total about 2018. This is from November 2019. It was a double punch of just the all new, all different Marvel, the Legacy era, which it wasn't good. I just didn't want to spend my money on that. And then came Tom King's Heroes in Crisis over on DC, which soured me on superhero comics. In total, basically. Tom King's a lousy writer. I'm sorry if you like him. If that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. And it's not my brand. What he did to Wally West and Ivy and Harley was just awful. But let's go back to Marvel. Jonathan Hickman. Jonathan Hickman is an amazing architect and writer. He has had years-long runs on Fantastic Four, on the Avengers. He's a master of story beats, of arcs, of acts, of story acts, of setup and payoff. I mean, this guy's a storyteller, okay? And so in November of 2019, I took a chance. And because I watch Wes at Thinking Critical, I watch Perch, I watch Gary at Nerdrotic, I watch Az at Heel vs. Babyface. It was comic book YouTubers that keep me informed about my old friends. And everyone on the planet seemed to be raving about Jonathan Hickman's The House of X and the Powers of 10. So I bought 2 random issues when they came out because I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to find out. And I thought it was just a really well told story, well written. I liked the infographics. I liked what they were trying to achieve. This whole these info pages are just, there's just so many like little things like up in the corner, like you can find out just little stuff. It's so well done, and it brought back one of my favorite mutants ever, Doug Ramsey, Cypher. He had my favorite power. He didn't like to fight. He didn't have an aggressive power. He had a pacifist power. His gift was that he can communicate with anything and anyone in their own language and understand. And and so this just set up so much. This had so much potential, and it was filled with these information sheets. And these. And I'm going to get to X-Men number 1 here. It was then X-Men was relaunched. And with Hickman and Lionel Yule, who's a really, really good writer. So this is X-Men number 1, dated from December 2019. So this probably came out about September or October 2019. And one of my favorite things growing up with Marvel Comics was the handbooks that had bios and it had schematics of like Avengers Mansion, the Baxter Building, the Danger Room, Spidey's web slingers, like just like they were just like drafting style schematics. So something like this, the Summer's House on the Moon. This is straight out of the Marvel Handbook. This style, and I just want you to look at this real quick. Yeah, this is where everyone's housing quarters. Okay, this is Jeannie's room, 121. We have Logan's room. We have Scotty's room, Scott Summers. There's a door adjoining to Jean's room from each. So she's in. They've all been reborn. They've all died and been reborn. It's one of the tropes of the Hickman era. So so Jean is in an open relationship with both men. And I thought that was really interesting. It's not as though Logan has a door to Scott's room. They have their own time with, that they have their own arrangement. They've lived, they've died, and Jean's come to the conclusion that, you know what, I'm gonna have my cake and I'm gonna eat it too. I'm done, juggling these balls in the air. I'm going to caress them instead. That's just me being silly. What happened to the X-Men, though? Hickman lost his creative power. There, between the editor, Jordan White, and the cadre of talent that was brought in, they started something called the X-Slack. And it was a mini office, the X titles office. Now, X-Men is always, well, not always, but since the 90s have had just several titles. Wolverine, Nightcrawler, X-Force, New Mutants, Excalibur, Hellions. It goes on and on. So there's a family of X titles. And so over time, very quickly actually, Hickman lost his creative control over his own vision and his own story. Why? Because of the intersection of all these different voices and we're at a time in publishing that it's modern platforming and modern agenda and ideology take precedence over traditional superhero storytelling. It's a corporate thing. You need to try to find as many new people as you can. Well, they didn't, and but the writers and the X-Slack kind of took the power. They took the power away from Hickman's vision, and you ended up with a bunch of comic books that don't matter and stories that don't matter. There's probably 2 issues of X-Men written by Hickman himself that actually pays off any setup that he labored to do. And it's like witnessing a car crash from afar. And you thank God you're not part of it. And that also it didn't, slog up your traffic. And you feel sorry for everyone that was involved. But you're just going to drive, keep driving in your own way and get to your own destination. And it was just something to witness. So yeah, I gave X-Men a chance. I would have come back if it stayed good. But I'm so glad that I'm tuned into these YouTube creators that, I stayed away from it. I can smell a stinker. And yeah, what happened to X-Men? Well, what happened to the X-Men is that just too many voices, too many chefs will ruin the dish. That's what we say in my business. I'm a chef. We're at a point where editors cannot say no to certain people of their writings because that would be punching down or that wouldn't be uplifting voices. There's no quality. It's all, the Hellfire Gala. Oh God. Is that going to go down as something magnificent, or is that just... I mean, how about XMen Green? I mean, I have a literal in-life good friend who is friends with Jerry Duggan. I've met Jerry Duggan at 2015 Comic-Con. I have a picture with him. I met him and Phil Notto. Great guys. You know, I really appreciated that. And we talked about our friend and sent him a picture and everything. And so I'm not going to slag Jerry Duggan. I mean, I think he's a decent writer. He was on Deadpool for years. I mean, he can write well. But is he allowed to be writing good X-Men stories? He gets a lot of crap from the YouTube creators I follow. I'm not going to pig pile on Jerry. I mean, we literally share in real life friends. Okay, so, I mean, I just don't buy anything. So, but I will say that XMen Green, wow, that is... I'm so glad that I'm not even part of the culture anymore. You know what I mean? That is... If you need to go find out what XMen Green was, then you need to, RTFM, as the kids say. Read the manual. It's it's about activism, and it's about good guys doing bad things and no consequences. And it's just, wow, it's alarming how bad the message is behind that. We've lost Xavier's dream. The dream is dead. The dream is over. Is that the allegory of being woke? That dreaming is done? I mean, I don't like using that word anymore, but it cuts to the chase really quick. I mean, Xavier's dream was that mutant kind and humankind serve each other in peace and in harmony. Now, Magneto, on the other hand, had his point. He lived through Nazi Germany. He survived the concentration camps. He's watched his parents get murdered in those concentration camps. He's seen what humanity can do. He knows that, Charles, your dream is wonderful, but humans are going to bite us. You know what I mean? And humans are humans. Magneto believes in his ideology of Homo sapiens superior, that they are superior. It's kind of like what Magneto says to Pyro in the first X-Men movie. What's your name? No, what's your real name? You're a god among insects. Never forget that. Ian McKellen. He did a great job. Fassbender did a good job, too. I don't mind those X-Men movies. I like them all. Even Origins Wolverine, even 3 The Last Stand, and even Days of Future Past, which is pretty good. How Kitty got the ability to phase shift through time, I don't even care. I just like these movies. I do. And because I'm a huge X-Men fan. I'm a lifelong X-Men fan. And I want the stories to be better. I want the stories to be about the X-Men trying to achieve Xavier's dream. But seriously, I mean, with agenda storytelling, with platforming, with the constant activism, there's no escapism in here. It's about activism now. So is that the new balance that we're trying to be sold, that we can't have Xavier's dream because now we have to have Xavier's woke? I don't know. What do you think? You know what? Leave a comment in the comment section. Tell me what's on your mind. What's your feelings about the X-Men? Where they're going, where they've been. What's your history? Which X-Men were you? Who did you have a crush on? I can't believe Ilyana Rasputin, Rachel Summers, Psylocke, wow, Kitty Pryde, wow, I was a kid, I was a teenager, man. Rogue, oh god, there was this one Heroes for Hunger special, the Rogue who had like this lingerie on, that got me through a few years. Give me a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. This one's been a little longer, but hey, it's the X-Men. I got a lot to say about the X-Men. I love the X-Men. I love comic books. I love superhero stories. It's a complete shame and sham what's been done to superheroes in the past, 6 years. I mean, I'm not buying it. Literally. or figuratively. So yeah, give me a thumbs down if you didn't like this content. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let's continue this conversation. I'm an ordained minister, a spiritual man. I make spiritual content. I'm also a professional chef. I give restaurant level cooking hacks so you can make delicious, nutritious, and beautiful food for you to share with your loved ones at your table. Please remember that breaking bread with your loved ones should never be taken for granted. Thank you so very much for tuning in today. This has been my X-Men spiel thing. It's been a long time coming, and it's pretty long in the tooth, but thanks for sticking in and tuning in. Thank you so much. Cheers.